Hi everybody, welcome to Boost Your Employability. This session is titled Get Empowered to Bring Your Value to Your Job. And this is episode 5. And today it is the 7th of December 2022. So in this session, we're going to be talking about the value of being authentic in your work or your job or your career or perhaps even your studies. We'll also be looking at what it means to be creative and agile, particularly in a multicultural and global team. And we'll be looking at things like transferable capabilities and why they're important when making brands look good online. So I'm excited today to have Bogdan Marinescu joining us. I'm going to ask him to turn his webcam on shortly. Before that, I'm just going to do a bit of an intro to Bogdan. So he is the founder and managing director of Digital Trails. Digital Trails help bring Bogdan will help bring this session together with a bunch of questions later on. So I'll kick things off with a few questions, and then we'll be welcoming questions from the audience shortly. I'll explain a little bit how to do that soon. So here's just a bit of a brief intro to Bogdan. So Bogdan's is an experienced strategic communicator, public relations, reputation management. He also specializes in content marketing, and he's worked both inside and agency side with companies ranging from small local to medium-sized enterprise and also some global corporations as well. So he's got a real breadth of knowledge across different sectors and different sized organizations. His expertise spans across medical, pharmaceutical, insurance, financial services and higher education. Bogdan studied in Leeds in the UK, where he picked up a MA in public relations and communications. He also spent some time studying in Bamberg in Germany and also in Messina, Italy, where he gained a BA in translating and interpreting between German, Italian and English. Thankfully, we're going to be talking in English, and I hope we don't dip into German and Italian, because I certainly will be lost at that point. Now, Bogdan tends to spend most of his working life traveling the globe. He's a bit of a digital nomad, currently splitting his time mainly between Amsterdam, Sicily, and Romania, where he was born. His company, Digital Trails, have headquarters in London, Amsterdam, Barcelona, and his team is made up of experts in public relations, journalism, reputation management, SEO, marketing, design and development, and probably more as well. Strategically, that team is placed all over Europe and North America and other regions too, and that helps serve the customers and the clients that he has in those regions. So before we welcome Bogdan, as usual, we're going to open up the session for questions for you guys that are tuning in live. To do that, simply hover over the question mark on your screen and feel free to drop questions in there. Feel free to ask anything and we'll do our best to get those answered. And don't hold back either, because questions are anonymous. So please do get anything in there that you are wanting to have answered. Also, throughout the session, there'll be a QR code that keeps popping up. That QR code is a link to the marketing club. That's the CIM marketing club. And the reason why we pop that in there is because it may be that you've enjoyed this session or previous sessions, and you want to get a little bit more content. Well, actually, using that QR code, simply take your smartphone or your smart device and hover over that, and that takes you to the registration page. Registration is free, so there's no reason why you shouldn't tune into that, and you get lots of cool free insight to whether that be technical insights or sort of latest trends in marketing as well. So yeah, check in, get that sorted out. If you don't manage to grab it now, don't worry about it. We will pop that up later on for you to have a look at. So I'm going to welcome Bogdan now. So hopefully he is around. Hi Bogdan, how you doing?
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me as a guest today, and thank you very much for everyone who's tuning in. Hopefully I can bring some value to attendees today.
Well, I'm sure you will. I probably didn't do a great job of doing an introduction to what you do, but you've got a very enviable set of expertise and certainly the way that you operate as an organization. So is there anything that you wanted to add to that?
I think you covered pretty much everything. It's if you look at my background and my career, what I think we managed to do is turn something erratic into a defined narrative. So as you said, I have experience from, I was born in Romania and then emigrated to Italy, where I finished my high school, then I did my BA, then went to study in Germany and then Leeds, ended up eventually in London, Luxembourg, and then Amsterdam. So quite a hectic path if you look at the individual moments in time, but again, that kind of work together to build a narrative and to build a career path that has turned out to now be in digital trails and doing the work I'm doing.
And I'm from Leeds, so probably being in Leeds was no doubt the best part of your travels.
Amazing. I was in Headingley. It was an amazing place. Leeds was an amazing place. So really good, very good platform for what I studied and then what I ended up doing for work.
Excellent. We won't touch on that too much. So first of all, I'm going to kick off with a few questions, and then hopefully we'll start to get some through from those that are tuning in as well. So the first one was around being authentic, and in particular, I wanted to know what that means for your employees, especially if they're looking to problem solve, innovate, or create uniqueness around their own personal brand. So is there anything that you can sort of talk about in terms of experiences around being authentic for your employees?
I think for us, a lot of authenticity comes from being transparent and trying to. I know everyone's heard this 1,000 times, but thinking outside of the box. So if you have a novel way of doing things, or if you think something should be done in a different way, being transparent and being open and bringing that to the table creates authenticity and creates innovation and creates and fosters an environment where we can discuss about problems and bring everyone's point of view on board in order to change or to innovate. So I think that's transparency is very, very important for us. It's not we're always looking at different points of view and always looking at getting out of the old ways of doing things and getting on board a variety of different points of view so we can evolve in that sense. So in order to be able to do that, I think transparency and having that confidence of bringing your ideas to the table, knowing that there's no such thing as a bad idea, creates that level of authenticity that we're after. Okay,
cool. So I talk to a lot of students who are yet to step into the world of work, and I know when I was younger, I certainly wanted to emulate people. So do you see that from in your experiences from some of the people that you take on? And I'm making an assumption here. Do you take grads on? Do you take people that are quite early on in their careers?
We do, and obviously we have a training program in place where we train grads and train employees that are at the very beginning of their careers, which is even more important now because we're in a either hybrid or fully remote working environment. So it's a little bit different compared to what it used to be a few years ago when grads would come into the office and then move from one department to another, and then they would learn by seeing and by looking and by being in contact with people. Now, oftentimes that's not the case anymore. The case is that a lot of people are working from home or working from shared offices, or simply going to the office maybe once a week or once a month or twice a month. So it's a bit more difficult to train, which makes it more important to highlight some traits that we think are going to make great professionals within, especially our business, or at least in the kind of remote working environment. So we're a bit more careful at identifying those traits that will create brilliant professionals and put those, professionals on a path for success.
Okay, so on that basis then, if someone were to set foot into your organization from day one, There's no such thing as being perfect. So I've tried to do it, and I'm way off the mark. So if you're talking about those traits and those transferable capabilities, could you name maybe the top 3 or 5 that you would expect an employee to arrive with to your organization with?
Yeah, of course. First of all, we don't expect anyone, whether they have experience or they don't have experience, to know how everything works. So I think having that level of curiosity and openness to ask questions is very important. From how tech works to how meetings work, to where to save things, to where to write things down or take notes. Being in a position to and you know, feeling at ease to ask questions is a very, very important thing. It's very difficult to work in an environment where everyone nods yes and everyone says that they've understood anything, and that's not really the case. So we're really looking for people to be curious and to flag things that they don't understand or that they need help with. That also allows us to understand that there's a genuine interest from that person to know how things work. That would be one main thing. It's also very important to show initiative to a certain degree. So it doesn't really matter necessarily that you know, we may hire in junior positions somebody that doesn't have experience. That doesn't mean they don't have initiative, and oftentimes that's more important than having experience. So having potential, I'm sure you will have heard this 1,000 times, but having potential oftentimes is more important than having the experience, because the experience is basically just a you know, a bullet point of you know, different jobs and roles that you've covered throughout your career history. But showing initiative means that you can actually be trained easier, quicker, and more efficiently into a role that you're going to cover. So that can come in 1,000 ways, from having started a blog to having done volunteering work to anything really that shows a level of initiative that gives an employer the confidence to know that you're potentially very suited for that role, if not from an experience standpoint, at least from a potential standpoint. And then another very important thing for us, but it's something that we put a lot of attention on, and I'm sure it's the same for other businesses as well, is the ability to be organized. And this is very important, especially as we work from home or as we work remotely. The ability to manage your own schedule, to prioritize, is very important for us. And that I don't necessarily expect everyone to have that on day one, but the expectation is that when somebody feels overwhelmed, they reach out for help from somebody within the business to help them organize better. These, I would say, are very important skills for us to have.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So one thing that struck me is that clearly your organization has to be creative in the sense that you're problem solving for your clients, right? So, and that's no different to a lot of modern organizations these days. We hear about problem solving and being creative. One thing I hear a lot is that being creative is something that can be taught, can't be taught. It is quite challenging. And then the second thing, really, I was thinking about specifically with your organization, where you've got people from all over the world working with you and working for you, from different cultures, different societal backgrounds as well. And presumably there are differences in that sphere when you're working on a project as a group. So could you talk a little bit about some of the experiences in that space, particularly about how creativity comes about, and whether there's having a diverse workforce is useful?
Yeah, of course. I think creativity you can have creativity in a variety of different forms. You can have a creative marketing campaign, you can have a creative image for social media, or you can have a creative way of tackling a problem, or you can have a creative way of responding to a client, for example. And creativity often comes from, for us at least, we try to foster an environment, a collaborative working environment, where we don't really have a traditional hierarchy. So we have a very flat hierarchy where I'm the managing director of the business and the founder, and I'll often be part of brainstorms with everyone else within the business, or will go into meetings with around certain campaigns or projects for clients and deliverables. So it's very important for us to feel that everyone has access to everyone, from the graduate joining us now to the managing director. So we have we foster this collaborative working environment where people are encouraged to ask questions and to work in a collaborative way. Even more so when we have multicultural teams and international teams, when everyone feels that they're working in a collaborative environment, they start to let go of those barriers, where people often think, oh, I'm not going to speak my mind because I'm going to say something bad, or I'm going to be judged, or my point or my opinion is not going to be taken into account. It's very important to foster that concept that no idea is a bad idea, no contribution is a bad contribution. So creativity all starts from fostering a collaborative working environment, and then taking on board different points of view. So it may be that the way we do things in the UK are completely different to the way things are done in Italy or Spain or France or the Netherlands or any other country. The idea is to prompt and to fish for different ways of doing things and different points of view, so we can incorporate that creatively into the way we do things. And that also creates a sense of appreciation within the team, for example, where somebody may have thought that their contribution wouldn't have been valued, but we always find a way to incorporate it in a creative way of doing things. So actually for us, having a multicultural team is an asset. The important thing for us is to manage to make everyone feel at ease, so that everyone can contribute with their different points of view, which are then worked into creative ways of solving problems.
Sure, I guess organizations would pay lots of money to have and build their own creative teams, and that's why they presumably come to you, because you're offering that uniqueness and you're able to bring that cultural and societal differences that's specific to those markets. So we're getting some questions in now, which is good. And the couple of questions that I wanted to put together are around job interviews, and somebody's asking also about personal brand. So we can sort of touch on that as well, because that in a way is kind of leads you to get a job interview, or certainly leads you to get to a point where people are interested in you and want to understand more about you. So somebody is asking, what's your personal brand? What does that mean to you?
This is actually a good explanation. Your personal brand, for me, from my point of view, is a highly valuable intangible asset. It's something that takes weeks and months and years to build, and it's something that can open 1,000 doors if managed properly. So if you think about, especially in the current environment where everyone is a Google search, everyone is a LinkedIn profile, everyone is a social media profile, a blog post. So we're a lot of the content that we produce, and a lot of people get to know us through that. It's actually very timely that you brought up this slide, but if you look on the left-hand side, that's what a typical Google search page looks like. You've got your ads and then your organic results, and you've got a variety of links, you've got images, you've got video carousels, you've got a variety of different features. And on the right-hand side is the search results you get if you type in Bogdan Marinescu and digital trails. Ideally, this is what an ideal first page of Google looks like, and that's if somebody makes the effort of I'm not saying necessarily that for everyone it needs to be like this, but if you're making an effort to influence that to a certain degree, again, that goes back to showing initiative and making an effort to control or to influence what people see about you online. This is very, very important, because the first thing, especially when you go into a job, the first thing that employers are going to do is they're going to look you up online. So they're going to drop your name in Google, they're going to drop your name on LinkedIn, they're going to look you up on Twitter, and they may or may not be inclined to take you on board based on what they find. So that's why personal branding for me is paramount. We do this type of work for clients, for enterprise level clients, for C-suite executives, but also for brands and products. But more and more, we realize how important this is at an individual level. So if somebody sends us a CV, this is the first step that anyone will do before they decide whether to invite that person to an interview or not. So yeah, just to answer your question, personal branding is paramount, and I think everyone should focus on an ongoing basis to manage theirs, because not having one can be fairly detrimental, or not having a curated one can be detrimental to reaching your objectives.
And that can be done in different ways. There's LinkedIn profiles. I notice you have your own blog, which is, you know, kind of talks about you, and it's that narrative around your story. So absolutely, there are lots of different ways you can cut that. I guess do what fits the sector or the industry or the type of work that you're wanting to move into. Yeah,
but also, for example, this may not be a priority if you're a student, if you're going into if you're starting off. If you're starting your career right now, right? But you can always go and buy a domain with namesurname.com. It'll cost you, £10 a year to have it, to own it. And you can just build a page in Wix or WordPress that doesn't cost you anything. You put up a page with your, experience, your CV, and it's just a window onto yourself, basically, that ends up ranking in searches. So it doesn't need to be high effort. If it can be high yield and low effort, but there are some tips that you can do just to make sure that you secure those assets and you use them when you need them. So, for example, if you look at the first result is my LinkedIn profile, but the second one is just a simple page with my name and a bit of blurb on myself and what I do. It doesn't necessarily require a lot of effort from me to maintain it or to manage it, but it's there and it ranks in my name. So again, that shows to me, if I were to see this from somebody else, it shows a great deal of initiative, and also knowledge around how things work, and interest in investing effort into this brand equity that is highly valuable. Yeah, cool. Okay, perfect. So I've got a question around, and a few people are sort of touching on this, but I think what they're saying is they're starting to get into the interview world, and it's a scary place. I don't know about you. I've had several knockbacks in interviews, but that's because that can come in different ways. You can go aim for something that perhaps is a big step. Or perhaps it's new to you and you might be a career changer as well. So I suppose a question that might be useful for some of the things that are coming in is and please help me with this, is what sort of tips can you give somebody in that space, whether they're starting in an interview and they've had some knockbacks, and I don't know the specifics of that, but if they're a graduate, what sort of things can they do to make them stand out a little bit? Again, these are tips that I'm sure you've heard over and over again, but come prepared to an interview. Know who you're interviewing with, the company that you're interviewing with, but also the person that's doing the interview. Take a little bit of time to check them out on LinkedIn, Google them, see if they write anything, if they contribute to any blogs, get to know them a little bit. I'm always of the opinion that you ideally, when you go for an interview, go for one and do it well rather than going for 20 and doing them so and so. So always prep well for that one interview. Make sure that you research the company and the person that you're interviewing with, and make that come across in the interview, because that's very, very important. A lot of times I interview people that come unprepared, and that's easy to understand in the first 5 or 10 minutes. And my expectation to a certain degree is that people come unprepared, because that's my experience of it, most of them at least. So if you're able to surprise me and show me that you've come prepared, already that's a brownie point, if you see what I mean, because I'm not expecting it, because most of them don't. So it's very easy to stand out from that point of view. Just spend half an hour or an hour researching the company and the person that is interviewing you, and then try to understand what they want from you. So for example, I'll just give you an example. If you're going for an account, for a role in client services, let's say, where you're required to work with clients, understand their pain points, to understand what their problems are, and to give advice, then you have to understand that one of the key traits that somebody's looking for in the interview is your ability to listen. So if all you do is talk in an interview, then that's a trait that somebody's looking out for that specific role. You will have already failed that kind of that test, if you will. So these are the small little things that you need to try and understand from a job description to make sure that you deliver what you're expected to deliver based on that role. So it's very, very important. And generally speaking, it's ask for feedback. So when you finish an interview, always go back and obviously get in touch with the person who's interviewed you and ask when you'll learn more about how the interview went, but also ask for feedback. And I suppose another very, very important thing is always think that somebody interviewing you will want to know what you can do for the company, not what the company can do for you, as a first point of call. So I've had a lot of interviews where obviously we ask people to ask questions during the interview. And a lot of questions, or some of the questions that of unsuccessful interviews have been around what the company can do for them before they've proven that they can do something for the company interviewing them. So always try to remember that you're trying to convince somebody to give you a job, and you're trying to convince somebody that you're an asset to that team and you're going to bring value to that team. So focus on what you can bring to the company as opposed to what the company can give you in exchange.
Brilliant. And I guess it's not just about having the technical capability, but people employ people, right? And that's I know that quite often when I've done interviews or interviewing other people, they tend to overlook the personality, and bits and the behaviours that you're looking for, and that is absolutely vital. And particularly in a world now where people are really keen to align what their working life looks like with their core values and their interests. So absolutely do your homework, and don't just think about being the best technical person in the room, but actually being a cool person, or being being yourself, or bringing something unique in that space as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I have experience with a lot of people that just blast out 100 CVs to 100 companies, hoping that something will fall through the net. And unfortunately, the problem with that approach is that, as you said, there's no background work to make sure that aligns with your core values, and that will come up in an interview. So it's best to pick your battles and pick 5 companies you want to work with. Make sure you tailor your approach to those 5 companies, and make sure you stand out in that interview process. Because if you're just firing CVs away and thinking that something's going to fall through the net, eventually the problems will emerge. So when I remember when I came out of university at Leeds Met, I wanted to go into PR, and I thought, okay, I have 2 options. There are 100 agencies in Leeds, so I can put together a CV and just blast it out to 10 or to 100, and just hope that somebody will give me an interview. And I decided to go a different way. I created a CV in Adobe Illustrator. I had no idea how to use the tool, but I spent a week or 2 designing this CV in Adobe Illustrator. And then I picked my top 5 agencies, and then I picked the first, and I tailored my message to them. I read their blog, I read their websites, and I got in touch with them with a funny kind of tongue-in-cheek cover letter email, attaching my CV. And I said, okay, if these guys don't come back to me, I'm going to go to the second and the third and the fourth, but that's it. I'm not going to send it out to 100. They came back to me the same day. They invited me for an interview the day after, and I was in the job, I think, 2 weeks after that. So I sent one CV and I got the job, but it did take me a month of work to put together the CV in Adobe Illustrator, to stand out, to study them, and then to send them a bespoke emails. I think that approach, you can commitment and loyalty and interest and curiosity is not that easy to come across these days. So if you can demonstrate that to an employer, it's very likely to give you a high success rate in getting that dream job.
It's a really interesting point. I've talked about this before in other webinars, where if you just do the numbers game and you're just trying to get an interview or a job with anybody, if something comes off, it's highly unlikely that company and the role is going to be suited to you, and you're probably going to be unhappy in the long run anyway, and be looking for a job soon after that. So yeah, I completely echo what you're saying there. Do your research and you select who you want to work with as much as they select who they employ. So somebody asked a really good question, which is probably something that most people ask in an interview, actually. And we're spending a lot of time in interviews here, which is fine. Hopefully we're helping people progress through that period of their lives. And it's about, can you give an example of a weakness? And I know people tend to think, how do you put a positive spin on that? How do you, and a common one that people use is, I'm a perfectionist, right? Because it's neither a weakness nor a strength, and, lends itself to both worlds. And I guess going back to that sort of being yourself and having a personal brand, is there something that people can do it in that space? Because, nobody wants to talk themselves down in an interview.
No, but the reality is the reality is that we're all imperfect. Nobody's perfect, right? And we all have weaknesses. When somebody in an interview asks you about a weakness, they don't necessarily want to know your weakness. They want to know how you're addressing that weakness. So oftentimes, let's say you're bad at time management, or you're bad at some other thing. As long as you have identified that problem and are working to solve it, i.e., let's say you're bad at time management. I say, look, in the past, one of my weaknesses has been not being highly organized. However, that bothered me, and I realized that could have been could have been a problem in my career. So I started using Trello, for example, to better organize my life or to better organize my work. Or I started to take notes or write things down or set reminders. So what we're really wanting to know is not what your weaknesses are, but how you're tackling them. What initiatives are you taking to make sure that you're actually solving a problem? Because problems will appear continuously. We're interested in knowing, are you the right person, or do you have the initiative? Can you demonstrate the initiative in solving those problems?
Yeah, and having the self-awareness, right? Because if you do think you're perfect, and it's glaringly obvious that you're not a right fit for that organization, then if you don't have the self-awareness, then that can be damaging as well.
But generally, everyone's. I think employers are looking for a growth mindset, and that means accepting that nobody's perfect, identifying the biggest problems, and then trying to find ways to fix them. Whether you do this on your own or ask for help, that growth mindset of wanting to improve is at the heart of everything, because that helps you grow in a role, that helps you develop in your career, that helps you learn new things, adapt to new challenges, and that's critical, in my opinion.
Agreed. And sticking on that growth bit, but in a slightly different context, somebody's asking, how did you start your business from scratch and do that? Was it organic, and were there any external factors like investments, or did you find other ways of funding that as a startup?
So the main thing that I had was support from my wife. Which is a very important thing, or support in general from friends and family and people around you is paramount. Because when you start, so there are two ways of starting your business. One is starting it bootstrapped, so no investment from outside. You only invest your own money if you have it, or you grow organically, or you take outside investment. We didn't take outside investment. We grew organically and we were bootstrapped. And to do that, you need to have the support of people around you, because you may not generate revenue for a while. You may not be able to pay the bills for a while. So you need to have either your parents or friends or your partner support you in that initial phase, and then have a plan, obviously. So that was in my situation, it was paramount. I was an employee. The last time I was an employee, and then I was working. I was waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, putting in a couple of hours of work to launch the business, and then I was going home and then putting another 2 or 3 hours in the evening. So I was doing a full-time job and then working on the side in the morning and in the evenings to get it off the ground, until I had a lucky break. We had the first client, the first big projects, and I made the leap. But in order for me to make that leap, I needed to have the support, and that's very important when you do it, unless you can afford to not have it. But most of us I'm afraid can't afford to not have it.
Yeah, and if you're looking to have that support, then obviously definitely lean on that. That there are alternatives, and I suppose this depends where you are in the world, and probably the stage of you are in your life as well, and the size of investment. But there is support for startups as well. So don't be disheartened if you don't have that network as well.
No, absolutely not. So if you're, especially depending on what you want to do, there are a variety of different pre-seed incubators that will kind of mentor you, bring you on board, work with you for a few months, get you up to speed with everything that you need to learn about branding, financials, products, pricing, and it's very little. Maybe the investment is £500 or £700 to get in one of these programs. Sometimes they're free. You just need to apply, and then you go through a process that will also eventually potentially help you find investors. So there are a variety of different free ways that you can do this even as you work full time.
Okay, excellent. And just remind me, what's the size of your organization now in terms of number of employees?
So we have a slightly well, it used to be a novel approach when we launched 4 years ago, but now it's kind of more and more organizations implemented. So we have full-time staff, and then a variety of in-market specialists that are project-based or freelance. But all in all, when we look at the entire organization, we're, I think, 100 plus now.
Okay, excellent. And how quickly did that happen?
4 years, just a little over 4 years.
Okay, impressive stuff. Excellent. Somebody's talking about we're getting lots of questions about interviews again, and somebody's asking about career changes here as well. And it looks like they're doing the right thing. They're investing time in a CIM qualification. I would say that, but I guess that gives them the standing. You've got experience of somebody that's been through CIM qual as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, go on.
In terms of career changes, I think marketing is not medicine at the end of the day. So it's something you can learn at different stages in your life, also because it's an ever-changing career, and it's an ever-changing discipline. What we call marketing today, is different to what marketing was 15 years ago or 30 or 40 years ago, and it's constantly evolving based on the type of media consumption that we use, the type of social media company that we start using. We didn't have TikTok marketing 5 years ago. We have TikTok marketing now, so it's constantly evolving. There's no wrong time to go into marketing, but you do have to have some sort of formal training, as you said, Johnny, because it's important to go through what's hot in marketing in a specific moment in time. So if you do want to change your career, it's useful to make sure that you have some sort of formal training in marketing, because everything changes very quickly. And then it's I would say it's a fairly easy kind of career to get into, or an easier discipline to get into compared to engineering or medicine or something else, or law.
Sure. And is that career changer that's looking to make that step into marketing, is that attractive to you as an employer? And if so, sort of what aspects of that is attractive?
It depends very much what your background is. So we have had interns within the company that wanted to understand if marketing was for them. So they did. They used to do a 3-month placement with us, and they were coming from, let's say, accounting, or they were coming from law, or a variety of different disciplines. And within, marketing, you've got commercial marketing, you've got brand marketing, you've got digital marketing. So again, a variety of different types of marketing. So you can take some of your transferable skills. For example, if you're used to doing auditing, or if you worked in finance, you can be very good at certain areas of marketing. So you just need to make sure that there is some sort of continuity between your previous experience and the type of marketing that you want to go into. But it's definitely attractive. We're always looking for. It goes back to that concept of kind of looking outside the box, thinking outside the box. What transferable skills can somebody from a different industry bring into marketing, and what different points of view can they bring into marketing? And that's always exciting and welcomed for an employer.
Yeah, and I guess that storytelling and creating a narrative is around the personal brand bit. And if you're making a leap into a different world in terms of your career, then tell that story. To talk about what's driving you to do that. And it's going back to the point earlier, people buy people, and if you can communicate that successfully, then I'm sure you'd be attractive to somebody, if not more. So getting down to kind of like the skills aspect now, somebody's asking around particular exercises that and I'm sorry I'm throwing you in the deep end here, but to improve things like communication and presentation skills, is there anything that you've had to do in that space, or have you always been blessed with being able to communicate well?
No, by all means, no. Well, one, I was very lucky, and I would hope everyone goes through this, but I used to be a waiter and a bartender, and it's not the most glamorous job if you think about it, but in terms of teaching you to deal with difficult characters or difficult situation, or being a mediator, or being working on your customer service approach, that did a lot to me in terms of helping me communicate well with people, listen, try to find solutions to problems, try to be a mediator in conversations, for example. So if you can do any type of work that highlights that and enhances that, whether that's charity work or any type of work that puts you in contact with the public, whether that's a call center, summer job, or whatever it is, being able to rehearse that and being able to find yourself in situations where you need to apply that can come can be very useful then in the future. With the presentations, for us, it's my background is in public relations, so you have to understand that the first time I went into my role, I was given a press release and a phone and told to pitch that press release to a journalist at the Times. So I picked up the phone and I called up the journalist, and I was reading out of this, from this press release and trying to pitch the story, and then the journalist asked me, so okay, how does this fit in my column? And I had no idea, because I hadn't done the prep work. So I got bruised and battered, and I learned from it. And from then on, I always rehearsed, and I always tried to make sure that I knew the narrative and the story that I was telling before I picked up the phone. So the rehearsing helps a lot, to organize your thoughts and to make sure that you're pausing between concepts and between certain things that you want to say. And generally speaking, I hope that everyone gets the opportunity to feel empowered in jobs they do, where they're not just asked to do menial tasks, but also I hope everyone's given a bit more responsibility. For example, with us, we ask everyone to put together presentations or slides for meetings, and it's not because we want to burden them with the necessity of having to put together 5 slides, but it's just to improve their presentation skills through time. So rehearsal, I would say, is very important.
Yeah, good answers. And I would also say, particularly on the presentation side, know your audience. You know, understand who you're talking to first. And 9 times out of 10, if you're going into an interview, then you'll know who's going to be there. On occasions, you might do presentations where you're not familiar with everybody, but if you get the opportunity, try and familiarize yourself with the surroundings, whether that be a physical space, but also if it's a virtual thing, make sure you understand the tools and the platforms and everything that you're using, and because you'll get more nervous if something goes wrong and you haven't been able to overcome that. Okay, so it looks like questions are coming to a close on that one, unless any more to come through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just talk about what's coming up in the next session. And if any more questions come through, we have got a little bit of time just to take those. But just to reiterate, also something I touched on in the opening is that if you want to check out what we're doing today again, or if there are any additional webinars that you might want to check into and gain some more insights, I'm sure there's lots of information here, and people might find it valuable to watch again. You can do that by checking into the CIM Marketing Club. Again, the QR code is on screen there, and again, it's free, so why not do it? You can always drop out if it doesn't quite fit your needs or expectations. Additionally, there's a back catalogue of CIM webinars as well, and they can be found on the playlist, particularly if you drop into the CIM YouTube channel as well. So the next session of Boost Your Employability, I'm going to be chatting with a guy who's an expert marketer called Tyler Lawrence. I'm going to be talking to him about his role in various kind of careers, but also touching on the B2B and the B2C side of that. And you can see the details on the screen there. So I suppose at this point, all I'd like to say is thank you very much both to everybody tuning in, but especially to Bogdan. I really enjoyed that discussion. I hope everybody tuning in did. Really grateful to have you on there, and hopefully you got some real good insights there. And finally, I'd just like to say thank you very much for listening, and goodbye. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.